Let me say this slowly, because if you blinked, you might have missed how a single bracelet turned into a full-blown cultural moment. When people joke that a bracelet just started World War III in hip-hop, it sounds dramatic. But if you watched how this unfolded online, you know it didn't feel small. It felt strategic. It felt personal. And it felt like psychological warfare dressed up in gold and black enamel. The internet even gave it a name: the Van Cleef War. And no, that name wasn't about jewelry alone. It was about reputation. It was about timing. It was about who controls the story after public breakup. At the center of it all were three people: Papoose, Remy and Claressa Shields. And somehow, a bracelet from Van Cleef and Arpels became the symbol of a much bigger battle. Let's walk through this carefully, because once you see the layers, yes, layers, you can't unsee them. The Valentine's Day production. February 14th, 2026. Most people were doing what most people do on Valentine's Day: picking up last-minute flowers from a gas station, ordering dinner through an app, posting a filtered photo with a heart emoji, and calling it romance. But Papoose did something very different. Instead of a quiet dinner or a simple surprise, he staged what looked like a movie scene. The setting was a beach. Not just a blanket on the sand kind of beach date, but a full production. There were roses arranged across the sand in neat, intentional patterns. Professional photographers capturing every angle. Drone cameras flying overhead for cinematic shots. And most dramatically, a message written across the sky by a pilot. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. At the center of this romantic spectacle stood Claressa Shields, world champion boxer, two-time Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most decorated fighters of her generation. On that day, however, she wasn't being celebrated for her punches. She was being celebrated as someone's partner. And then came the moment that set everything off. Papoose presented her with a black onyx and gold Alhambra bracelet from Van Cleef and Arpels. It wasn't handed over quietly. It was highlighted, framed, photographed up close. The bracelet shone in the sunlight, centered in at least one of the shots that later circulated online. In hip-hop culture, Van Cleef isn't just a luxury brand. It's a symbol. It represents status, serious investment, commitment. It's often associated with the wife aesthetic, a subtle but powerful message that says, this woman is valued at the highest level. So when he fastened that bracelet onto her wrist in front of cameras, people didn't just see a gift. They saw a declaration. Whether he intended it or not, it felt like an announcement. This is my choice. This is my future. This is who deserves the luxury treatment now. And that's when everything shifted. The backdrop: a marriage unraveling. To understand why that bracelet hit so hard, you have to look at what was happening before Valentine's Day. For years, Remy and Papoose were considered one of hip-hop's strongest couples. Their love story was built on loyalty, especially during difficult times. Remy served prison time early in their relationship, and Papoose publicly stood by her. That narrative of devotion, patience, and endurance became part of their brand. They weren't just married. They were a symbol. But over the past several months, that symbol began to crack. Instead of quiet separation, their issues unfolded publicly. There were Instagram stories with alleged private messages being shared. Accusations flew in both directions. At one point, Papoose reportedly referred to Remy as a narcissist. There were claims that he had asked for a divorce multiple times. Remy publicly accused both Papoose and Claressa of planting negative stories about her in the media. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't private. It was messy. So by the time Valentine's Day arrived, the atmosphere was already tense. The public had been watching their marriage unravel in real time. Emotions were high. Allegations were fresh. This wasn't a peaceful new beginning. It was a new relationship emerging from the middle of a storm. Why timing matters. Now, imagine you're in the middle of a reputation crisis. Negative headlines are circulating. Social media debates are happening daily. Your name is trending, and not for the reasons you'd prefer. Then, suddenly, you stage the most cinematic Valentine's surprise of the season. That timing is impossible to ignore. If this had happened quietly, months after everything settled, maybe it would have felt different. But it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened in the middle of controversy. So naturally, people started asking questions. Was it genuine love? Or was it an attempt to change the narrative? Because in celebrity culture, grand gestures are rarely just personal. They're also public relations tools. A big romantic moment can redirect attention. It can flood search results with beautiful images. It can shift the conversation from messy allegations to soft, glowing love stories. That doesn't mean the love isn't real, but it does mean the optics matter. Remy's one-word response. Here's where the story becomes unforgettable. A few hours after Papoose's beach production started circulating, Remy Ma posted to her Instagram story. No long statement, no emotional rant, no vague quote about betrayal, just a photo, her wrist. And on that wrist, multiple Van Cleef bracelets. Not one, not two, a stack. Vintage pieces. Diamond-studded versions. Different metals layered together effortlessly. Anyone familiar with the brand knows those bracelets are not inexpensive. That stack likely represented tens of thousands of dollars and years of collecting. Under the photo, she wrote one word, layers. That was it. One word. And somehow, that single word shook the internet harder than skywriting. Because it said everything without saying too much. It suggested depth, history, experience. It quietly implied, this is not new to me. I've been here. While one bracelet was being presented as a milestone, Remy displayed a collection. She didn't compete. She contextualized. And the internet reacted instantly. Luxury as scoreboard warfare. Let's talk about what was really happening beneath the surface. In celebrity culture, luxury items aren't just personal purchases. They become symbols, evidence, status markers. When relationships fall apart publicly, those symbols can turn into weapons. One bracelet says, I'm valued. 5 bracelets say, I've always been valued. That's why Remy's post hit so hard. It reframed the entire narrative. Instead of the conversation being about Papoose moving on and celebrating someone new, it became about legacy. Who had history? Who had depth? Who had already built that lifestyle? This wasn't about fighting over a man. It was about defending reputation. Remy's post wasn't loud. It was controlled. And control reads as power. The alleged clapback. According to screenshots shared by fans, Claressa later posted her own bracelet photo, reportedly calling herself the real partner. Whether that was intentional shade or simply a proud moment, it fueled the fire. Here's the thing about public perception. The person who posts once and goes quiet often appears more confident than the one who keeps responding. Remy made her move and then disappeared. If Claressa responded again, it made it seem like Remy's post had landed. And in social media battles, appearing unbothered usually wins. The psychology behind the spectacle. Let's step back from jewelry for a moment. When someone moves on publicly, especially after a long relationship, there is often pressure to prove happiness. To prove the new love is real. To prove the decision was right. To prove that nothing was lost. Sometimes that pressure leads to grand gestures. The bigger the doubt, the bigger the display. That doesn't make it fake. It makes it human. But there's a difference between celebrating love and convincing an audience. Genuinely secure relationships rarely feel like press releases. That's why Remy's single-word caption resonated so deeply. It didn't feel like she was trying to convince anyone of anything. It felt like she was reminding people of who she already was. Confidence doesn't need skywriting. Confidence doesn't need to label itself the real one. Confidence just exists. The perception of legacy versus upgrade. Another uncomfortable conversation started bubbling online. Some fans argued that Papoose once had a partner deeply rooted in hip-hop culture, someone with history, influence, and shared brand building. Others defended Claressa as a champion in her own field, with accomplishments far beyond music. The debate wasn't really about comparing women. It was about legacy versus new beginnings. Remy represented years of shared struggle and cultural presence. Claressa represented a fresh chapter. And when luxury enters that conversation, it becomes symbolic. Is this an upgrade, a replacement, or simply something different? The bracelet became the visual shorthand for that entire debate. Why we care so much. Here's the truth. We don't care about the bracelet because of its price tag. We care because we see ourselves in the story. Many people have supported someone through hard times, only to watch them give grand gestures to someone new. Many people have questioned whether they were truly appreciated. Many people have wondered if they were foundational or just temporary. This story touches those feelings. That's why Remy's response felt powerful. She didn't beg. She didn't fight publicly. She didn't try to win him back. She reminded everyone, including herself, of her value. And that's something people recognize instantly. Social media as battlefield. This entire situation highlights how much social media has transformed relationships. Every gift becomes content. Every caption becomes strategy. Every photo becomes evidence. Instagram isn't just an app anymore. It's a courtroom. It's a scoreboard. It's a stage. In this case, romance became a weapon. Jewelry became a talking point. Silence became a statement. And the winner wasn't necessarily the happiest person. It was the one who appeared calm, dignified, and secure. So what was it really? Was the Valentine's Day spectacle genuine love? Maybe. Was it also a carefully timed narrative shift during a reputation crisis? Possibly. Was Remy's layers post-petty? Some think so. Was it brilliant? Many believe that, too. What's undeniable is this. Nothing in celebrity culture happens without awareness of how it will be perceived. And perception shapes reality. The bigger lesson. Strip away the brand names, the fame, and the luxury setting, and this story becomes deeply human. It's about moving on. It's about pride. It's about not allowing yourself to be erased. Remy Ma demonstrated something important. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to compete to remind people of your worth. Sometimes one word is enough. Layers. Literal layers of bracelets. Metaphorical layers of history. Emotional layers of experience. The internet may joke about the Van Cleef War, but beneath the memes is a lesson about image control, emotional intelligence, and the power of restraint. In a world where everything is posted, the calmest person often holds the most power. And sometimes, the smallest accessory carries the heaviest meaning.